Thanks for watching this project overview video about the Best Prize store. I'll look at specific code in other videos, but for now I will focus on the general structure. The project began in MySQL Workbench. On my local instance, I created a new schema and added 6 tables to contain the data for the Best Prize store: admins, deposits, orders, organizations, prizes, and students. For example, the Students table has 7 columns for storing specific information about each student, including a primary key, student ID, and a foreign key, organization ID, which links a student to a specific organization or store. Next, I created a new project in Visual Studio using the ASP.NET Core MVC framework. I installed 2 NuGet packages, Dapper and MySQL.data. Dapper is an object relational mapper that enables the .NET program to access a relational database. MySQL.data helps establish a specific connection to a MySQL database. Then I created a model to correspond with each table in the database. This makes it possible to convert rows from the database into objects in the application, and vice versa. For example, the student model has a property for each column in the student table. The property's data type also corresponds to the column's data type, in this case integer or string. Next, I created the interfaces and repository classes. In a repository design pattern, the repositories handle all queries to the database. For example, the Students repository class contains methods to list all students, view an individual student's information, add a student, and update a student. The interfaces serve as the blueprint for the repositories. For example, the Students repository derives from the iStudents repository interface, which defines the methods to be included. Next, I configured the database connection in the Startup class. Under the Configure Services method, I added an IDB connection for the MySQL database on my local instance. Later on, I would also add a connection for the database in the Azure server. Those connection strings are hidden in my appsettings.json file. Next, I created HTML web pages, or views. Each view displays different types of information, depending on what the user would like to see. I've organized the views into folders depending on the table that they draw their data from. For example, for the student table, we have a view for adding a new student, an index where you can view data for a specific student, and an overview where you can see a list of all students. Each of these views is rendered as the body within the shared layout view, which provides a template so that certain elements like the header and footer do not need to be duplicated on each view. Next, I created a controller for each view folder. The controllers use logic to determine which methods to call, which views to display, and which data to send to the view. For example, the student controller contains 5 different actions. The user is able to trigger these actions by clicking on various links or buttons. Lastly, I published my database and application to Azure using Azure Database for MySQL servers and Azure App Services. This moved the database and application to the cloud, where it can be accessed online by the public. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you watch the demo video as well as the code walkthrough videos.